Welcome to PENSARE Basketball. The Toronto Raptors are better than even their biggest Glazers could have ever imagined. The Raptors have had a very tough schedule to start the season. They have faced a lot of teams that have playoff aspirations. And this morning, I spent a ton of time doing a deep dive into the Raptors analytics, into the Raptors statistics, and I've come up with a set of data that is going to make you very, very excited about the season that we are currently watching unfold. Give this video a like. And a little birdie told me if you hit like on this video, if you're one of those people that frequently doesn't hit like on the video, a little basketball is going to bounce for you. So let's get into this. So first of all, I mentioned this yesterday during our post-game live that the Toronto Raptors are above 500 for the first time since April 2023. Now, this is a slight inaccuracy on my part. They technically started the season now 1-0, which is above 500, but I should add the qualifier after 3 games. Above the Cloud says it bounces. It is true. If you like the video, the little basketball, it does bounce, and it does help the algorithm a lot, and it costs you nothing. So this is great. And I've been saying no hat pen. Yes, once every, let's say once every 60 days or so, I like to go without the hat to remind people that I'm not actually bald. Okay, I think a lot of guys in their 30s who wear hats are bald, and then so they wear hats. I am not one of those people who likes to wear hats because I'm bald. I wear a hat because it makes me feel safe. Okay, so that's the first thing. So that is the first thing. Now, second, this is last night's advanced box score. I promise the statistics get better and better and better as we go. And this is a little bit of a preview of some of our member shows on Sunday, which are very heavily film based and analytic based. But again, this is some stuff that some of these numbers are probably going to be things that you haven't really thought about. Okay. ESPNNeedsIKD saying all the goats are bald. No shame in being bald either. 100%. No shame in being bald. Tell that to LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Jaylen Brown. So here's last night's advanced box score. And in terms of boxes minus, this is a sight for sore eyes. Grady Dick and Emmanuel Quickley having really good games combined. Scotty Barnes, after a string of 4 really, really great games, had kind of a mediocre dud last night, but still, a lot has changed for the Toronto Raptors in terms of their overall analytics. And one of the things that is a little bit underrated about the Raptors' 5-4 start is how they're doing against their conference. Now, it's been 3 years since any of us have cared about conference play or interconference record because the Raptors have not really been a playoff team. Okay. And right now it does matter because right now you're competing with Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, Milwaukee, New York, the team you face tonight, without Jakob Poeltl, by the way, the Philadelphia 76ers, and of course, the Atlanta Hawks, the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, potentially the Boston Celtics, the Indiana Pacers. These are all teams that were, slated to be around the Raptors range or above the Raptors. It's worth noting that the Raptors are the team in the Eastern Conference that has the best intra-conference record. They are 4-1. Okay. That is better than Detroit's 3-2. That is better than Miami's 3-1. That is better than Milwaukee's 5-2. For every single win that you generate, and this is very basic, simple math, but for every win you generate, because this is a zero-sum game, there is a loss registered to somebody else's record. And at the end of the season, when you're vying for that 6th spot to avoid the play-in tournament and, having the ball bounce against you or an injury or something, it will matter that you have a half win more than Milwaukee or 1 win more than Atlanta. It also matters who you've given those losses to. You have given those losses. You've given 2 to Atlanta. You've given 1 to Milwaukee and 1 to Cleveland. Those are all teams that are expected to be play-in or playoff bound. You haven't given a single loss to Washington. Let us pray we give them 3. You haven't given a single loss to Brooklyn. Let us pray we give them 4. You haven't given a single loss to Charlotte, Indiana, or really any of these other teams. So giving losses to teams that you're in direct competition with is very good. So in a lot of ways, the Raptors' 5-4 record is very underrated. Matthew saying, can you explain the box plus minus stat? So box plus minus is an attempt to use the box score to generate an idea of how much a player impacts the score above an average player. So if a player had a 10 box plus minus on an entire season, that would mean the team in aggregate between offense and defense, both sides being played, this is not football, would be 10, the team would be 10 points per 100 possessions better with that player. It's not the same thing as a net rating. It's not it's not the same thing as a simple plus minus. It is, however, in the same vein of attempting to measure impact. Now, yesterday I brought up Jamison Battle. Jamison Battle had 0 points yesterday, but it was very clear to me that many good things happened because of his spacing. Now, he won't generally get any love in the box score for that, but it's very obvious from watching the game that he positively impacted the game, and he should get credit for that. The box score, simple box score, will not give him credit for that, but the advanced box score will. So that's generally how we would look at it. So let's, so this is really this is the Eastern Conference right now. Detroit is the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference right now, which is just crazy to say, but they are doing really, really well. Cade Cunningham is having a brilliant season. He's probably top 10 in MVP voting if the vote was to happen right now. Now, it's also worth noting, if you've noticed throughout NBA history, typically young teams are bad. Usually. That's what made what happened with OKC last year so surprising, because the OKC Thunder were not bad. The OKC Thunder were, in fact, remarkable and well ahead of their time. Now, why is that? Well, that's why people are projecting dynasties for teams like San Antonio and OKC, because they're young and they're good. And most young teams are bad. Consider the youngest team in the NBA, which is the Brooklyn Nets. They are bad. How bad? They are this bad. Right at the bottom. Okay, Washington is also a really young team. So it's kind of interesting that the Raptors aren't considered this super young team. So I decided to do something this morning, and I started looking at only players who've played. Okay, so for every single team, I went through and I looked at only players who've played. And Basketball Reference counts you as the age you are on January 1st of the year that you played. So December 18th, if your birthday is December 18th or December 26th or whatever, and you're 18 right now, you're going to be 19 this year. So Cooper Flagg is registered as 19. But if Cooper Flagg was born on January 2nd, he'd be registered as 18. So that is the age, right? Now, obviously, I did the calculus for the Nets. Their average age, 23.44 among the 16 players that have played for them. The Raptors are 24.46. The average age of the Toronto Raptors is 24.46. There are rookies in the league right now that are older than your average player. That is crazy. The Thunder this year, per the players who played, are 24.92. The Bulls, a very young team that is getting a lot of credit and kudos for being young. They have a couple of older players like Javon Carter and Nikola Vucevic, both guys who are a little bit older. They are 25.58. The Knicks, this is very disingenuous, by the way, because 2 of the youngest players on their roster have played like a combined 5 minutes, so that drags their overall age down a lot. But they're 26.8. And if I took those 2 players out, they'd probably be closer to 28. Okay. The Warriors are 29, and the Clippers are damn near 30, 29.93. And much of the heavy lifting on that, and the thing that is keeping them from being one of the oldest teams in NBA history probably, is their rookie, who barely plays, quite frankly. So the Raptors are winning. They have had a really tough schedule. Granted, you can point to injuries, but I can point to injuries on our end too. Scotty hasn't been 100% at all. Emmanuel Quickley is has been horrible. Jakob Poeltl has been one of the worst starting centers in the NBA, largely due to his back issues. And the last 2 games, he's been much better. So I think that this is interesting because the Raptors should not be winning. Based on their age and based on their injuries and based on their strength of schedule, they probably should be 2-7. But they're 5-4. So they're exceeding expectations. The thing that happens when any team exceeds expectations is we struggle to figure out what's real, what's not. Is it sustainable? What's replicable? What needs to change? What needs to stay the same? Is it due to crazy shooting luck? So I'm going to show you how the Raptors have been this good. And this is interesting. So the Toronto Raptors, who for most of the season have been bottom 5, bottom 6 in defense, based on their last few games, including that game against Cleveland, are now 10th in defensive rating. That is a mega jump. It is a performance that is due to small sample size and largely being anchored by what they did yesterday to the Atlanta Hawks, an unforeseen, event, like how much the Hawks struggled. But 10th in defense, they're 10th in net rating. Net rating calculates, the difference in it's like the point differential. 12th in offense, 5th in half court offense, which of course points to the fact that they are not a very good transition team right now in terms of transition efficiency. They are 13th in pace. You'll recall 6 games ago, we did the exact same numbers, and the Raptors were first or second in pace. The pace is slowing down for the Raptors. They're moving slower, and their defense is getting better. And this was what the data pointed to all along, which was that when the Raptors had these high court pressure possessions where they were picking up 94 feet, they were typically horrible defensively. However, when they exerted effort in a conservative manner and were a lot more conservative with their traps and their rotations and their help coverage, they actually were a top 5 defense. So have the Raptors figured out that they're actually way better offensively than they ever thought they could be, pivoted strategy, and what we're seeing right now in the last 4 games, which is a 4-game win streak, is an adjustment from Darko Rajakovic and his coaching staff to say, we're good enough offensively to not have to game the system defensively. I think if you're watching, that's exactly what's happening. The Raptors are also 8th in field goal percentage, 7th in three-point percentage. However, there are some areas to clean up, and we'll point to the culprits of that. 19th in free throw attempts, 19th in free throw percentage, 26th in rebounds, 25th in offensive rebounds, 15th in steals, and 22nd in blocks. Almost everything that I just pointed to can be solved by one player. Almost all of it. Jakob Poeltl could solve 80% of this by himself. Okay. Jakob Poeltl and Scotty Barnes and CMB. There's a lot that we can talk about here. We'll talk about who's really like quote unquote to blame there. Now, here are the top teams in the NBA by net rating. Plus 13.5, OKC Thunder. Not surprising. Denver Nuggets, 12.8. If you've watched the Denver Nuggets this year, this checks out. The Houston Rockets have been surprisingly good. Plus 10. The San Antonio Spurs, off to a very hot start, have cooled off quite a bit, blew out a lot of teams, plus 8.6. The Miami Heat, the fastest team in the league right now, a team that is totally revolutionizing how they play basketball. They are plus 6.2. I do not think this is sustainable, but they are doing this without, arguably, their second best player in Tyler Hero. Norman Powell has been a revelation for them. The Detroit Pistons, atop the Eastern Conference, plus 5.9. The New York Knicks, a contender in the Eastern Conference, plus 5.3. The Cleveland Cavaliers, plus 5.1. The Sixers, whom the Raptors face tonight, plus 4.0. And there are the Toronto Raptors, plus 3.6. And the Lakers are right behind the Raptors at plus 3.0. This is a really good sign because you have faced a really hard schedule. I've talked about pairings, lineup data, etc. I will let you know that the Raptors' typical starting 5, including Jakob Poeltl, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Emmanuel Quickley, is starting to trend in the right direction. They have gone from the worst starting lineup in the league to an average-ish to bad starting lineup. But over the last 2 games, they've won their minutes together, and it is trending in the right direction. They're figuring out how to play with each other, and I think that that is a huge thing because obviously that is the most frequent lineup that you run on the court. It doesn't really matter how the lineups perform with Jakob Poeltl, Sandro Mamukelashvili, and Jamal Shed. If all of your lineups with Emmanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl are bleeding minutes, you will never win playoff games. So solving that starting lineup has been huge. And obviously at some point, because Darko Rajakovic had said to RJ Barrett, you'll start the season, but we'll see how it goes. Well, that's really what it was. If it didn't get better, you were going to have to tinker with the starting lineup. You're going to have to consider putting Grady or Jacoby or Ochai or CMB or somebody in place of somebody. And let's just be honest, You ain't benching Emmanuel Quickly. You're probably not benching Jakob Poeltl, and you're definitely not benching Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram. So it is a very, very good thing for RJ Barrett, especially that he, A, has played super well, B, that the lineups with him are starting to do much better. Now, in terms of Toronto's most effective two-man combinations, it is actually RJ Barrett and Sandro Mamukelashvili. And there's a picture of the two. Sandro, before he lost most of his hair at Montverde in high school. So it's kind of cool that they have rekindled that connection in Toronto. Number 2, Grady and Sandro. Get used to Sandro. He's going to be here a lot. Number 3, Scotty and Sandro. Number 4, tied, plus 17.3 net rating. IQ and Sandro. Number 5, Jamal Shed and Sandro. This is only minimum 70 minutes played. These are the most positive lineups with a minimum of 70 minutes played. Number 5, Jamal and Sandro. Number 6, Scotty Grady. Number 7, Ingram Sandro. And then number 8, finally, Grady and Jamal. Something is working for the Toronto Raptors. Certain things are not working. If I remove the barrier, by the way, of 70 minutes and I start going down to 20-minute lineups, you'll see a ton of Jamison battle. Ton. Battle and Barnes, battle RJ, battle Ingram, battle. It's battle all over the place. So Jamison battle has been awesome, but just not getting the opportunity. Moving on. Here are some culprits. Okay. So I started looking at the problems. Like, what is the problem for the Toronto Raptors? They're a poor rebounding team. They don't have a good nose for the basketball. They will frequently send 2 players to the glass, and they're terrible in those situations. So it's not a matter of we are leaking out in transition early to up the pace, and that's why we're a bad defensive rebounding team. No, the Raptors consistently have 2-3 guys underneath the basket when they're giving up these offensive rebounds. On the other end, it's also not a factor of we're not sending anyone to the offensive glass because we're trying to be conservative with our transition coverages. No, the Toronto Raptors are sending 2 people to the glass very often. RJ and Scotty are sometimes down there. Yak and Scotty are down there. CMB and Mobo are, CMB and Ingram are down there. They will often have 2 people crashing the glass offensively. They're just terrible at getting offensive rebounds. There is one player on this team who is exceptionally good at getting offensive rebounds, and that's Jakob Poeltl, and he should be getting better. But there's another player on this team who's really good at some of the things that the Toronto Raptors are really bad at right now, and that's actually Jonathan Mobo. Jonathan Mobo, in terms of per 100 possessions, is one of the top offensive rebounders on the team. He was last year as well, and he is also he is the top shot blocker on this team. So obviously, I think a lot of the Raptors' current 4-game win streak has a lot to do with Scotty Barnes being much better defensively. Like, if you remember my coverage of him early in the season, it was, I'm happy the shot is dropping, but he has really, really dropped off defensively, and this is not going to work. And the Raptors were losing. So now Scotty has veered away from the offense. He's going to have some struggle games like yesterday. But in order to win, you need somebody, and especially your best defender, to really lock in on that end. He's been disruptive. He's been getting on the glass. He's been crashing the glass. Yesterday, there was a possession where I think he and Mamu or he and somebody went for a defensive rebound and it squirted out of their hand and they caused the turnover. I vastly prefer that because it's a dead ball turnover than neither of you go. They get an offensive rebound and a wide open 3, which also happened a lot yesterday and has happened all season to the Toronto Raptors. Now, I've mentioned before, offensive rebounds are a team killer. Okay, one, they are demoralizing because often you work very, very hard to get a stop. And if that team got an offensive rebound, it means you forced the miss. You just didn't complete the possession. So it's deflating. Number 1. Number 2, offensive rebounds very often will lead to the most efficient offense for the other team, which means it's going to be a wide open kick out 3, a kickback 3 to above the break, or a putback dunk. All 3 are horrible shots. And because you yourself, obviously, are in a defensive rebounding position, you are now out of position to guard. So very often, the best shots, the best offense is going to come off of offensive rebounds, and the Raptors give up offensive rebounds like nobody's business. So here are, and of course, they also don't get to the line. And getting to the line is also very important. Now, to the Toronto Raptor fans who remember, DeMar DeRozan was elite at getting to the line. The Raptors have had some very good free throw attempt guys over the years. What is the point of getting to the line? And why is it so important that RJ Barrett Scotty Barnes continue the trend they were on last year of getting to the line because they have been really dropping the bag this year. It's important to get to the line because when you play this breakneck pace of basketball, when you have this extreme energy defensive concept, you need breaks. Okay. Free throw attempts allow you to get breaks on your terms. It's very important to sort of stall, right? Now, if you're to the line, that means at worst case, your coach can adjust your transition coverages in case of a missed free throw. And more than likely, if you're making your free throws, like a good team should make 75 to 80%, 82% of their free throws, you will also, number one, be getting easy baskets. The easiest baskets in the NBA are layups and free throws. Number two, you will be forcing the other team to put the ball out of bounds, and that way you'll be able to guard not in transition. And number three, foul trouble early on especially can put the other team in very precarious situations defensively. So for instance, yesterday, if you attack Kristaps Porzingis and he gets 2 early fouls, he can't play. And if you attack him for a third one in the second quarter, now he has a very tentative defensive job for the rest of the game. Scotty got, early fouls yesterday. Obviously, we watched this game, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a couple games ago, he got like 4 or 5 fouls, and he had to be very, very cautious defensively. Wemby had a game where he was in foul trouble. He had to be very cautious defensively. You need to put teams in foul trouble because A, it slows down the rhythm. Number two, it puts them in, disadvantageous. Like there's nothing better than 6 minutes left in the quarter. We haven't picked up a single foul. We can be super, super aggressive. The refs are not going to call everything. But if we're already 4 fouls in, 3 minutes into the quarter, now the next 9 minutes, every time I foul, it's 2 free throws automatically for you. The Raptors are leaving tons of points on the board because they don't get fouls. Now, there's 3 players who are doing a great job of this relative to last season. Grady Dick, per 100 possessions, is averaging 3.9 free throws more. We don't say a lot of positive things about Grady Dick on this channel this year. This is one of them. He is attacking the glass, he is attacking the rim, and he is getting fouled a lot. Number 2, Brandon Ingram. He was abysmal getting into the line last year for New Orleans. He's had higher rates than he currently has. I believe his rate right now is 5.4 or 5.6 per 100 possessions. He can be better than this. He can be a lot better than this, but it's nice to see that it's better than last year. Mamu, again, totally different role in our offense versus the Spurs offense. He's getting a lot more creation responsibilities. I can't say he's been exceptionally good at this, but it's nice to see once again that he is plus 0.9 per 100 possessions compared to last year. 4 players who are not doing so well just so happen to be 4 of your starters. Emmanuel Quickley, close to last year. And by the way, last year's rate was very high. This year, it's negative 0.4. So relative to last season, he gets to the line negative 0.4 possessions less. So 0.4 possessions less per 100 possessions. Jakob Poeltl, largely due probably to, he did become a better free throw shooter last year. I suspect he is going to be even a better free throw shooter this year. They've done a lot of work with his shooting form and all that stuff. But he is getting to the line 1 time less per 100 possessions. RJ Barrett, the Raptors' best guy last year in terms of getting to the line, he is getting to the line a negative 1.9 possessions less than last year. That is bad. And Scotty is even worse at 2. So these 2 specifically, Barnes and Barrett, they are the ones who absolutely need to get up past where they were last year. They can't take a 2-step back. So if they just did what they did last year, this year, so let's just say they replicate their performance from last year, these negative 2s turn into 0s. If they do nothing but just do what they did last year, maintain it, the Raptors would be top 15. That's the gap. So, yeah, in terms of offensive rebounding and blocks, I think it's difficult to justify right now mobile minutes. Is that really the solution, or is it going to have to be accomplished through trade? But it would be interesting if there are some injuries. Like tonight, we might see some Mobo minutes because Jakob Poeltl is out. It'll be interesting to see how Mobo deals with Joel Embiid. Okay, Colin Murray-Boyles is likely to get the start at center for the Raptors. How are you going to deal with Joel Embiid, who is a lot more perimeter oriented right now, but is still a 7-foot behemoth and still very skilled How do you deal with Adem Bona at the rim? He's one of the most ferocious shot blockers in the league right now. The Sixers present a ton of size, not a lot of defense on the perimeter. So the Raptors should have, Ingram, RJ, Scotty should have an easier time than they did last night. But geez, Justin T saying, who's guarding VJ? I would suspect it will probably be RJ, which means yikes. That could be bad. Anyways, and here I wanna finish this off with mid-range efficiency. Here are two things. Number one is mid-range efficiency. Number two is mid-range volume. So more mid-range attempts. So going left to right, the more right you are on the chart, that's more attempts. From bottom to top is the most efficient. So Lauri Markkanen, the worst by far. He's the least frequent and frankly the least effective. Right at the top, you have Donovan Mitchell, right, and Rui Hachimura, who are the most effective but not nearly as frequent. And right in the sweet spot, you actually have the Slim Reaper and the Slim Reefer, if you want to call him that, BI3. These two, which is Kevin Durant and Brandon Ingram, typically you would expect these two players to be flipped. You would expect it would be Kevin Durant, who would be at 60%, and you would expect it would be maybe Brandon Ingram, who'd be at 40%, but actually they're flipped. Ingram needs to get more mid-range attempts. His mid-range attempts are more effective than most players on our team's rim attempts. And that's kind of crazy to say, but it's true. No, that's not true. Hold on. Let me clarify. There are players on our team that are less effective at shooting threes right now than Ingram is at making mid-range shots in terms of points per possession. This is not sustainable, more than likely. Teams are going to have to guard him a little bit differently if this continues, because if this were to continue, he would be on pace for one of the best mid-range shooting seasons in NBA history. Better than Michael Jordan seasons, better than a lot of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander seasons. If this is the Ingram that you get for the rest of the year, this could be this is an all-star season for sure. So there's little Scotty Barnes there, not super efficient, kind of clustered into a pack, which includes Jaren Jackson, Paolo, Tyrese Maxey, Pascal Siakam. I think that's Pascal Siakam. No, sorry, that's Bobby Portis, Cade Cunningham, guys like this. They're kind of in a cluster there. Scotty was much better than 32%, 31%, whatever this number represents. Last year, he can get better. And honestly, I think Scotty can be where Jamal Murray is, or where Jalen Brunson is. I think Scotty is that level of shooter from the mid-range. Min Young Chung said, can we get some Chucky minutes tonight? Chucky Hepburn got the game chain yesterday for the Raptors 905. Very nice to see. He had a double-double, and he had a ton of steals. Also want to see Elijah Martin guard BJ. No, you don't. No, you don't. Okay, so, So all of that being said, I think this data points to the fact that the Toronto Raptors are ahead of schedule. Now, did I mention the fact? No, I didn't mention the fact. Let me mention the final fact. The Toronto Raptors have the second easiest strength of schedule remaining. Second. The easiest strength of schedule remaining is for another Atlantic team, which is the New York Knicks. So the Knicks have the easiest schedule remaining. The Raptors have the second easiest schedule remaining. I'm going to pull up strength of schedule for a second and just pull this on the screen for y'all. So this is, per Tankathon, this is the remaining strength of schedule. The hardest strength of schedule, Utah Jazz. No surprise. Most of these are going to be Western Conference teams. The Indiana Pacers, surprising, actually. Dallas Mavericks, Phoenix Suns, OKC Thunder, New Orleans Pelicans, mostly Western Conference teams, but you do have the Brooklyns, the Washingtons. You have a few teams in there. Typically, bad teams are going to have harder strength of schedules. Why? Because they don't get to face themselves. I've brought this up many times. Strength of schedule is a little bit misleading in that sense, because but here are the Toronto Raptors. So the Knicks, the Raptors, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Hawks, the Pistons, the Heat, and the and the Rockets have the easiest strength of schedule. Now, because it's so early in the season, the gap between the average team being 0.477 versus, 0.53, this gap only widens as the year goes further and further. Okay. So there's going to be more deviation from the the zero mark, which is 500 in this case. So the Raptors are sitting pretty. They have gotten through a really difficult part of their schedule. They have had a lot of injuries to deal with, but they've also been blessed facing teams that have had a lot of injuries to deal with. They've been in most of these games. With the exception of 2 games. They probably should have won 7 games so far. So tonight, I expect a loss. I will have you covered after the game. Win, lose, draw, don't care. We will have a post game. This is a scheduled loss if I've ever seen one. You played a really, really hard fought comeback win against Atlanta last night. You're going into Philly probably on very little sleep. You're a little bit banged up. You got beat up last night. You had your chain snatched from you. You somehow win that game, which was a very important game. And now you go in against Joel Embiid without a 7-footer on your roster. So if the Raptors win tonight, I think we need to have a very different conversation about, could this team actually come out of the East? Could they win rounds? Because it's not an easy team to beat. This is going to be one of the tougher opponents that you're going to have. The Sixers have been playing amazing. Maxey presents a ton of issues for this team. We lose corner shooters every which way. I believe Quentin Grimes is playing tonight. Quentin Grimes is going to be great. So I'm kind of hoping, here's my, I don't want to say prediction, but my hope for tonight. My hope is that Scotty kind of took it a little bit easy last night so that he would have a little bit of juice for today's game. I'm hoping. Brandon Ingram didn't have a great game yesterday. Scotty didn't have a great game yesterday. Your stars have to carry you on the road. Okay. So RJ, I think, started yesterday 0 for 6. So I think those 3 are going to really have to carry us. And now I really need Emmanuel Quickley to string together back-to-back games, because let's just be honest, like, we need him to do what he did yesterday. He scored 18 points efficiently yesterday. Should have scored 20 if the refs hadn't cheated him out of 1. So yeah. Yeah, I think the Raptors are in a good place, man. I got to tell you, like, I'm a very optimistic person. I predicted the Raptors would be potentially a 50-win team this year. And even I, looking at this schedule to start the season, I thought they would be 3-7 in their first 10. So the fact is, Paul Blunt saying, "What happened to Rob? Who is this clean-cut gentleman?" Thanks, man. Also, yeah, hold on. Let's share one last thing with you. One final thing with you. Yesterday gave a little bit of a props to, actually, two final things with you. Got to share quick. Where the hell are we? Where are we at? Okay, here we go. So yesterday I shared about one of my favorite Raptors media people, which is Kayla Gray. I had this to say. Kayla is a very beautiful person. And I'm not saying this as a, physical comment on her appearance. I'm saying this as just like her energy is very beautiful. Kayla is like one of my favorite people in Raptors media history. She's amazing. So that was really cool. And it was really nice to see that she shared it. And it was very well received. It's nice to be able to say good things about people, especially people that you admire and respect, and people who you think are doing good work. I think that's what positive communities should be built on. Also, this was a good Keeks report. Hang on one second there. Where are we at? Yes. Shout outs to Keeks, doing a lot of great work this year. She said exactly 2 years after this tweet. So this is November 7th, 2023. The Raptors no longer have the worst half-court rating in the NBA. They're officially 29th now. This was This was a accomplishment to move from 30th to 29th. That's 2 years ago. And exactly 2 years later, the Raptors are the 5th best half-court offensive rating in the NBA. That means in possessions classified as half-court possessions, the Raptors have the 5th highest rated half-court offense. Most teams with elite half-court offenses run a ton of pick and roll and have superstars. The Raptors, as it currently stands, do not have a quote-unquote superstar. Ingram, Garrett, Barnes, none of these guys technically qualify to the level of Shea or Luka. So they're doing it as a team. And I think for those of us who've kind of seen this team brimming from, who have preached patience for years with Darko, you can see year after year the potential assists are high. The shot quality index is off the charts. So the Toronto Raptors should be a good team. They just weren't hitting shots. They were generating great looks. They weren't making them. And right now, I think Ingram he's what's solving it. Let's just be real. Let's just be honest. Okay. Ingram is solving so many things for the Raptors half-court offense right now. So he deserves a ton of credit. Darko deserves a ton of credit. RJ, Scotty deserve a ton of credit for buying in. In fact, Emmanuel Quickley actually deserves a lot of credit for buying out, because for much of the start of the season, they weren't top 5 in half-court offensive efficiency, in large part because Emmanuel Quickley was dribbling the air out of the basketball, and he has moved off the basketball a lot more. Yeah, it's great. Justin T saying Kayla as a guest would be fire. For sure, man. Kayla's amazing. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. People are always asking for shorter lives. You finally get one. 37 minutes, and we're out. Please. Rob Pensare looks 45 suddenly. Brother, what happened to your head and face? I thought you were in your 30s. You're looking 45 to 48 today. Put the hat back on. Hairline is pushed back too much. My hairline is not pushed back at all. My hairline is exactly where a person my age, or actually a person 10 years younger than me, should be. I've not, touch wood, thank God, experienced any hair loss. Making an account like this, weird, but cool. Congratulations. You have not affected me at all. Have a blessed day. You looking 48, homie. Really? All right. Cool. I'm sorry, brother. I will say this. Almost every single person who calls you brother who doesn't know you is toxic as hell. Please hit like on this video. Trolls absolutely be crazy. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.